Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most successful video game ever made, and ever since its release in 2013 it has continued to rake in millions of cash through its online mode. You'd be hard pressed to find a single human being that plays video games and doesn't own this game, or at the very least hasn't played it before. Like almost every video game in its genre, however, such as Watch Dogs and Saints Row, this game is divisive, with most of the hate aimed at GTA Online for its developers' blatant greed and exploitation of its customers in the form of shark cards, which includes children spending ridiculous amounts of money on something ludicrous for the equivalent of a full price game today. But the very same game receives well-earned praise for its single-player story, immersive game world, cutting-edge graphics for its time, and of course, the thrill and fun of being a criminal in a video game, committing all sorts of crime, including its namesake, Grand Theft Auto. But what if I told you that this isn't the first time a game like this got the exact same praise and critical reception? What if I told you that GTA 5 was arguably the least loved in its franchise by hardcore fans because almost everything it does was done before in the form of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, San Andreas, and Grand Theft Auto 4? What if I told you that none of these games, including ones from other franchises in their genre, would not exist in the way they do today if not for one spectacular yet controversial masterpiece? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the original Liberty City. Welcome to the original 3D open world crime sandbox. Welcome to Grand Theft Auto 3, 20 years later. Grand Theft Auto 3 was developed by Rockstar Games and was released on October 22nd, 2001. It was made specifically for the most powerful video game console at that time, the PlayStation 2, but of course was also on other consoles, including the original Xbox. What made this game stand out from any game made before was its open world, the freedom to basically do whatever the player desired, and a dark story as well as an aesthetic centered on crime. The renderware engine really was incredible. Bear in mind this was 2001. Most 3D games at this point were small stages, basically rooms that needed a loading screen to transition between each, and you could only really go one way on a specific path. Games that let you go multiple ways from the get-go, such as The original Ratchet & Clank did not exist for another year. Grand Theft Auto 3 really stood out as a result. There were no Watch Dogs, no Sleeping Dogs, no Saints Row, and really, the only competitor was Driver 2, but that game did not give you nearly as much freedom and was also on weaker hardware made for the original PlayStation, same with the original Mafia. This game looked far more impressive than anything the world had seen at this point. Like, as a guy that can appreciate all graphics, GTA 3 at certain locations and weather conditions looks pretty, yeah, it looks pretty. It looks very pretty, but it's also the dark, gritty and gloomy aesthetic that really sets this game apart. DMA Designs clearly cared deeply for what they were creating in the first two Grand Theft Autos, and nothing changed when they were renamed Rockstar Games after being acquired by Take-Two Interactive. The first two GTAs, along with their spin-offs, were all 2D top-down shooters, so to make the transition to 3D and knock it out of the park first try, well, it really shows the talent that these developers had. So surely the entire world agreed and everyone adored the game, right? Well, yes, but actually no. But before we get into that, fun fact here, this game very nearly never saw the light of day. Notice that this game came out in 2001. Very ballsy from Rockstar, considering a certain tragedy shook the world to its core just a little over a month prior. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And of course, Sam and Dan Houser have come out and said that they had a very hard conversation about whether or not they should even release the game because of how violent it was and how it literally lets its players murder vast amounts of people with numerous weapons, bombs, and even indestructible tanks. Fortunately, they decided to press onwards, just removing certain missions or editing them since some were clearly based on terrorists. Hell, there's a mission in this game that has a dude with a bomb vest strapped to him. I'm surprised they didn't remove that one altogether, but since it's pretty late on in the game, I suppose no one really noticed because, let's be honest, you'd have to be an insane player to even make it past Portland without cheats or mods. So imagine what it was like completing the game in 2001. If anyone who played the game back then is on this video, let me know in the comments if you actually beat the game. I'm very curious. Oh, and on the topic of the dodo, no, its wings weren't clipped because of 9/11. It was never supposed to fly. Also, certain flight patterns for the planes that fly around Liberty City as you play were altered as to not be near any buildings. No prizes for guessing why. So let's start with everything there is to love about the game. Sense of accomplishment is a phrase we've come to despise as companies such as EA and Rockstar themselves use it to justify their grindy online features and greedy microtransactions, but damn, does GTA 3 fit that phrase more than any other game in its genre. You earn in-game currency for pretty much everything you do in this game. Do a stunt jump, money. Beat up a poor pedestrian, money. Murder, 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 money. That cash, use it to buy weapons for more murder, and oh my gosh, it's so fun. The more side missions and collectibles you collect, certain perks will spawn outside of your safe house, including weapons, health, armor, etc. It's so rewarding, and it's honestly what keeps me playing the game, this year in particular, more often than any other GTA. That and the exploitation of cheats. Are you looking at this gameplay right now, wondering why I'm in Staunton Island or Shoreside Vale, yet have missions from Salvatore and Tony Cipriani? Yeah, that's where the flying tank comes in. What you do with that is shoot backwards off of a ledge, such as the broken bridge between Portland and Staunton Island, and you can traverse the limitations of the story. The best part? Unlike Vice City and San Andreas, you aren't penalized for this. That's right, no instant and infinite wanted level. Just you and an open world crime sandbox that really lets you have that freedom you so desperately crave from your video games. And this is just another thing that kept people playing GTA 3 years after its release. Like, I understand the limitations of missions, but outside of that, we just want to have fun in the world that's been created for us, the consumers. I'm glad Rockstar still understands this, like in Red Dead Redemption 2, you can travel to Saint Denis as early as Chapter 2 should you wish to do so. Grand Theft Auto 3 shows that this has been the focus since the beginning. These games are a sandbox first and foremost, the story is a bonus. Perhaps that philosophy has been flipped since Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption, but the fact that it is a sandbox has clearly always been a focus, whether it was primary or secondary. The vehicle handling. I actually preferred this handling model over GTA 5's, at least for cars anyway. The art style of Liberty City. A lot of players complained about the lack of colour, but honestly, with a story like the one in GTA 3, it honestly wouldn't make any sense to have it any other way, to be honest. Like, can you imagine the dark story and missions like the Marty Chunks questline in a location such as Vice City with all its colours? Not really. With Marty's money problems, it wouldn't have made sense for him to be anywhere near a place like that. Liberty City is a dark, gritty and gloomy place to be, and the art style, shading and lack of colour reflects that. The voice acting, whether it's aesthetically brilliant or comically hilarious, looking at you Luigi and Misty, it all just seems to gel and fit perfectly. They really nailed the whole mafia thing, but I don't want to speak too much on the story because spoilers. I mean, I know it's a 20-year-old game, but some newer fans will be playing the remasters, so that's why we aren't touching on the story for the most part. But yes, famous lines like Tony Cipriani's "Let's show these wannabe tough guy what it means to be a tough guy" are what make this game most memorable. I love it. There's not much else to say. So how was it received? Well, if IGN is anything to go by, this game is damn near perfect. A 9.6, whatever that means, with the only complaint being about the graphics, which is odd considering that that was a 2001 review. But a near perfect score just goes to show how revolutionary Grand Theft Auto 3 turned out to be for gaming. It became so popular, such a phenomena, that it caught mainstream attention. For the right or wrong reasons, that's up to your own interpretation. Grand Theft Auto 3, like any other explicit content, eventually found its way into the hands of children, which I myself don't have an opinion on, as when GTA 4 came out, I was one of those children. So of course GTA 3, with all its violence, dark humour and gore in some instances, isn't exactly suitable for children, but hey, what do I know? And of course media outlets tried their damnedest to pry this terrible game away from children, but they of course made it worse. They gave the game more coverage, more publicity, and children saw more gameplay of it and how much fun it looked, and of course jumped out of their seats to beg for a copy of GTA 3 courtesy of Santa Claus himself on Christmas Day. It quickly became the best-selling game of 2001 in just 2 months. Just like GTA Online nowadays, everybody wanted and eventually owned this atrocity of a game as dubbed by mainstream media. As a result, Grand Theft Auto 3 not only became a game that defined its genre, but also became the sole reason why mainstream media loves to say video games cause violence. Yeah, this game caused that. I don't need to go too deep into that topic, but in my opinion, America needs to start blaming its mass shootings on the availability of guns to pretty much anybody in the country and any sort of weapons, and in the case of schools, bullying. Video games do not cause violence for the most part. Bullying does. It stems from violence, and anyone who blames video games needs to wake up, swallow their pride and realize the real problem. I mean, little 8-year-old Geordie played Fable 2 as a child and loved every second of it, but I never looked to the people who bullied me throughout school and tried to tear them apart like a Balverine. I mean, come on. But yes, Grand Theft Auto 3 was undoubtedly a success, and it truly deserved to be one. A near perfect score though? I think not. Far from it. Prepare yourselves, because I'm about to rip this game to shreds for one specific underlying problem that persisted throughout Vice City and San Andreas alike. God, I hate the combat in this game. It's awful. I'd honestly much rather watch paint dry than have this kind of lock-on aiming system in any new game. It makes playing this game an absolute chore, and the same goes for Vice City and San Andreas. I don't know why those games get let off the hook and this doesn't, you know? It's like they didn't even try with this terrible game design, and since Vice City was made within less than a year after this, I could maybe give that the benefit of the doubt too, but San Andreas has no excuse whatsoever. Yeah, it improved a little, but it was still awful and outdated, especially when another Rockstar game released in the same year, Red Dead Revolver, has weapon mechanics that still hold up in today's gaming climate. Going back to play Red Dead Revolver is extremely fun. Going back for the 3D Grand Theft Autos, however, is not. At least if you're trying to complete their stories. But yes, GTA 3 gets the benefit of being the foundation game, so I can let it off the hook slightly. But you can bet your life that when I do that San Andreas review and retrospective in 2024, I'm seriously docking points for this. Imagine my joy when I heard that the remasters will have GTA 5 styled weapon aiming. Damn, it's gonna be good. For the original games, completing them with cheats was the only way to go. Another thing here, whoever thought it was a good idea to get busted by police straight away if you were in a car, but it wouldn't really happen often outside of the car other than, you know, what you've just seen in the gameplay, which itself is pretty rare. Like, man, it's such a dumb idea. Couple extras, of course. Personally, I'm not too big on this game's soundtrack. It ain't that memorable. But to be honest, tuning through the radio and playing opera music while blowing things up with a tank is some really satisfying gameplay, I must say. Oh, and the ambulance missions as well. There isn't enough time for them when they heighten the difficulty. This makes a completionist's life hell, and I honestly feel sorry for anyone who's gone through this. Actually, I take that back. Anyone who's put that much time into 100%ing this game is just insane to me, and you kind of deserve the you know, insanity that you feel afterwards. Although, being able to say you completed Grand Theft Auto 3 legitimately is really impressive, and you honestly deserve the biggest congratulations for your perseverance, because, I mean, I'm telling you, these games even make me give up, and I usually complete any game I own within a week. A game's legacy is extremely important. The longevity, how long can you keep players interested, etc. Grand Theft Auto 3 was truly a worldwide phenomenon. No game could compare, and it came as no surprise that it turned out to be the best-selling video game of 2001. It was so big that it was still the second best-selling game of 2002, only beaten by its sequel, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which improved on story, voice acting, graphics, aesthetic, and of course was just bigger and better in a lot of ways, although still retained some of the same underlying problems. The game received a special version on its 10th anniversary in 2011, which added various UI improvements and featured slight graphical improvements, but of course we have a proper remastered version coming soon this year, 2021, which hopefully changes almost everything, including improvements to the god-awful combat mechanics. Let's hope for the best. Either way, Grand Theft Auto 3 is one of the most important and influential games of all time, and its legacy will remain forever. So that's about it. Man, this video took ages to make. Right now I am recording this little outro at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was recording various parts of this review, retrospective, whatever you want to call it, throughout this week. I've had a pretty tough week, but I was able to get this out, and of course during the creation of this video, the gameplay for the definitive editions for GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas were shown. And this game looks incredible. I think maybe it's a little bit too cartoonish looking, at least in character models. I see a lot of people complaining about that, which I think is just dumb. Like, of all the things you're going to complain about, you're going to complain about that when you're being given something that, you know, you've asked for years, decades even. How long have people been asking for remakes of, or at least remasters of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and then you finally get it and then people start complaining? It's like, people just don't know what they want, you know? When GTA 6 comes out, when that gets announced, people are going to nitpick that as well, and they're going to be like, oh, this is what we've been waiting for. Oh, it was not worth it. It was such a waste, and the game is not even out yet, you know? And that's exactly what's happening with the definitive edition. I guarantee it will happen with GTA 6. But yeah, either way, it was really fun to play through GTA 3 again. I say play through as if I got past Portland. I really didn't, but I love playing Grand Theft Auto 3. It's quickly become one of my favorite games ever, because GTA 3 was a game I didn't really play much as a youth. My first GTA was GTA 4. Then it was, or was it Vice City? It was either 4 or Vice City. Either way, GTA 3 was not my first one, by far. I don't even think I played GTA 3 until a few years ago, you know? I beat Vice City with cheats. I beat San Andreas with cheats. I beat GTA 4 properly. I beat GTA 5 on the PS3 properly. But I never actually played GTA 3. I've not beaten GTA 3 with or without cheats, you know? I've never beaten this. So I am looking forward to finally playing through and experiencing the story of Grand Theft Auto 3 for myself in the remasters. But yeah, playing the original, playing this version, has been a lot of fun. And I've always wanted to get into the, the business of making reviews and retrospectives, at least in my style. And this is the first one I've ever done. So please go easy on me if there's anybody who wants to critique me on my commentary style. This is the first one. I was planning to do The Last of Us Part 2 first, but I mean, have you seen how long that game is? Like, that's 30 hours gameplay footage I would have to record for that review, and it way too much for me to start off with in terms of the first review and retrospective. So I wanted to start with something a lot smaller, and what better to start with than probably, the first proper open world game and one of the most influential games of all time, Grand Theft Auto 3. I think this was the perfect decision to go for. I will still be playing this game and making videos on it on the lead up to the remasters. Same with Vice City and San Andreas, so don't worry about that. If you are new to the channel, I hope you did enjoy this video. Please leave a like, of course, and subscribe if you are new, if you take a look at my content and think that's something you would enjoy seeing more of. I don't know, but I would really, really appreciate that. Either way, it was nice being here, nice doing this video for you guys, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, peace.